Hi everyone, and welcome back to ProfDan Tutorials channel. Today's video is a breaking news, and I'm really excited, and I'm really sure that majority of you too are excited. So, you have got your EB2NIW approval. So, what next? When can you adjust your status in the US? Or if you are abroad, when does the visa processing begin? And what is this monthly visa bulletin everyone is talking about? Is it like a waiting game? Final action dates? Date for filing? What do they even mean? This has been the thoughts in many people's mind, and today's video, I will make sure I dissect everything again to you all. Now, understanding these dates is really key to ensuring your application process runs smoothly. So I will be breaking down how each of these final action date charts, date for filing charts, how they really work. Now, when you can prepare your application versus when you can also submit. So, watch until the end. Again, it's my very self, Prof. Dan. Well, if you have always been finding ProfDan tutorials on YouTube channel helpful in the past, or you are returning, or you are a new viewer, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Sharing, they say, is caring. So pass the content along to others who might really benefit. We would love to also hear your thoughts and questions in the comment section, as we've done in the past, ensuring we respond to people's questions. Yeah, because it can really be confusing. And when we give responses, it's based on official facts from the USCIS source, not on hearsay, then say. And be sure, of course, to subscribe so you will never miss out on any valuable insights. Also, for all updates and more professional content, make sure to also follow St. Daniel's Global LLC on LinkedIn. Your support means everything. So, before we start, have you subscribed? Press the subscription button. It doesn't bite. Share with your loved ones. Don't be the only one benefiting from this, right? Okay, so now on a very much serious note, this issue about date for filing or final action dates is confusing to many people. In the past, I've also done videos that explain this using relatable illustrations or examples. But in today's own, I will explain it much more deeper using basically the example of this latest news for the October 2024 visa bulletin that is being released. And of course, it's really a breaking news. So watch until the end and benefit from this. Follow me on the screen. And of course, before then, I would also say that you can go into your browser. If you are using Google or any browser you're using, just put or type USCIS Visa Bulletin 2024, and you will see pages that will show up. Click on this page, Visa Bulletin for October 2024, and you will see directly from the USCIS source what they have written about this visa bulletin. My own is for educational purpose, and I'm here to let's relate all of these text words together to have better understanding, right? So that's what ProfDan Tutorial is all about, making the complex simple. Let's dive in directly. As you see on the screen, the very first thing, this chart is directly from the USCIS source. This particular chart is for dates for filing employment-based visas, which is the very first thing I would like to explain to you all. Now, this particular chart provided is from the October visa bulletin. Like I said, Every month you expect to see the visa bulletin released, which is usually in the middle of the preceding month. You receive that of the next month. So for example, as of the time recording this video, it's like the middle of September, almost the middle of September. And now we're talking about the October visa bulletin. So that's how it works. When we get towards the middle of October, we see the visa bulletin for November, and it continues like that, right? So now, again, this is for the October 2024. What does this chart means for those who do not know? This chart basically outlines who can start preparing their employment-based visa applications based on their priority dates, which is when their I-140 petition was filed. Remember, here we're talking about people who have received approval, people who submitted from I-140 petition for, say, for example, EB2 NIW or EB1A, for example, and they've received approval, and USCIS, of course, have sent an approval notice of action to these petitioners. And on that notice, you will see a priority date. And that priority date is usually the date you submitted your petition, the date it was filed and admitted by the USCIS officer. I hope that is understanding. So now, what you should note, if your priority date is before the date listed for your category and country, then you can prepare your application for this next stage. Again, look at this chart. You would see employment-based different categories. Then you would see the next column, the second column, all chargeability areas except those listed. What that means, these other ones listed across these four columns, China, mainland born, India, Mexico, and Philippines. So except for this one, every other countries, like Nigeria, for example, you belong to this second column, all chargeability areas, right? So now let's break it down. For the first one, which is the employment-based first preference, that is EB1, wherein we can find the EB1A category where you can self-petition, right? The EB1B for professor, the EB1C for multinationals where you cannot self-petition for those, for B and C. Those ones can be done by the company, or association or something, right? Now, the good news again, in the last video, we saw that there is no longer visa number available for the EB1 category for the whole of September. But good news again that now when we get to October, by the time we start the new fiscal year in October 1st, 2024, the good news is that the EB1 category is still current. Yes. Now, when it's current, it means a lot. What it means is that for those who have received their approval, they can adjust their status if they are in the US. And of course, they can expect to do their consular processing if they are abroad. That's just the issue about this current. So let me just quickly take you through this. Key points or key takeaway from this particular chart, as you can see, is that now let's see. For the first preference employment-based EB1 category, we see again that the area that is designated as C, which means current, applicants in all of these regions except the China, India, Mexico, and Philippines, right, can proceed to file their visa application, regardless of the priority date that is written in their notice of action. You don't need that priority date. That's what it means for this category that is current. However, let's look at the second preference where we have more applicants for the second preference EB2 NIW category. Again, when you see this, it says all chargeability area, your country included, except the other ones listed in column 3 to 6. What that means is that you can prepare if your priority date that is written in your notice of action is earlier than August 1st, 2023. So check your priority dates in your notice of action. Again, the date you submitted your petition to USCIS. If it's earlier than August 1st, 2023, you can prepare your application. Now, I'm using this general term now because later on towards the end of the video, I would explain to you for this October if you can prepare and submit or if you can only prepare. And again, that is based on what USCIS says for every month visa bulletin release. A direction is given as to which one should you use. Should you use the date for filing as we have on the screen, or as we're going to see in the next slide, should we use the final action dates? So that's that on these particular slides. And basic advice is that you have to monitor the visa bulletin every time. As I said, the US government issues a new bulletin every month that reflects any changes in these dates. In the past months, the data has been March 2023. So a bigger jump from March to August. That is really great. So March, April, May, June, up until the last day in June and July, I mean, up until the last day in July. For all of you who have your priority date for there, that is a big news. All right, so that's that about the slides. Then let's take a look or focus on the next slide. The next slide. So for this next slides, it talks about the final action dates, which again, I will explain the generic meaning to you. Again, I will still bring this final action date and date for filing together and explain the general thoughts so you understand the differences. So I'm just breaking everything down for now. So final action date we have now. Again, this is the chart for final action date, which is different from the earlier one, talking about the dates for filing. What then is final action date? The final, as the name implies, final. So the final action dates for, again, the employment-based preference category simply outlines when visa numbers, please take note, when visa numbers are actually available for applicants in these various employment-based categories, when the actual visa numbers are available. And I'll explain further what that means. So, simply put, now the final action date chart simply tells applicants, I mean petitioners who already received the approval, when they can actually receive their possible green cards based on their priority dates. That's what final action date does. If your priority date, again, is before the date listed for your category and country, in this case, let's use all the chargeability areas for countries across the globe, except for China, India, Mexico, and Philippines that have their different date listed. So it simply means that a visa number is available and you can expect your final processing of your submitted application and potentially receive your green card as soon as possible. Yes. All right, so just to give us a quick overview again. So let's take some quick example. So look at the first category now. So what this means is that if you look at the EB1, let's see, for example, other country like India. So what it means is that applicants from India with a priority date, that is earlier than February 1st, 2022 are eligible for their green card, right? So, but if your country is marked C, which is current for every other countries, even like Mexico, Philippines, and all other countries except China and India, that has different dates, you can receive your visa immediately. On the other hand, look at that of the second preference, the EB2 category. Again, let's look at India. Now, for Indian applicants, they must have a priority date that is before July 15th, 2012 in order to get their visa process. That is many, many years of waiting. Imagine if applicants from India, 2012. Wow. About 12 years of waiting. That's a lot. I hope miracles happen. However, if you look at that of all other countries, you must have your priority date before March 15, 2023. So check your notice of action again. If your priority date is before 15 March 2023, then be sure you will get your visa processed and get your green card. Again, that's a big news. All right, so basically that is that. And now I will go ahead to explain deeper, focusing on this October visa bulletin, what is said, the implication, and what it means for those who have their cases already approved and have been awaiting this time, a long time ago coming. All right, so let's look at that. Now, dates for filing versus final action dates. I will explain what this means to you. So let's break it down based on these two terms and how they really affect your ability to prepare and submit your documents, depending on whether you are in the US or if you are abroad. So these are two important things for those who are already in the US. And remember, you've indicated in your I-140 as of when you apply and submitted that you will possibly adjust your status in the US. That's because you reside in the US. So let's talk about this. Then after that, we also talk about those that are abroad. As many of our viewers always say, Prof. Dan, you've always been talking about those reside in the US. What about those of us abroad? And really, we have many people abroad. So I'm trying to incorporate that into, my videos. Now, again, if your priority date is earlier than the dates for filing charts. We've talked about the date for filing. What that means for those of you in the US, you can prepare your documents and you may submit. Let's use the word may, and I'll explain why. You may submit your application to adjust status. It's dependent. I said may because it depends if USCIS allows that or not. And that is because USCIS typically requires you to use the final action date. That is the primary norm. Use the final action date to determine if you can actually submit your adjustment of status application or not. However, as an exception, which we would see that it has worked for October visa bulletin, as an exception, sometimes USCIS will allow the use of the dates for filing charts if and only if they have more visas available than applicants. More visas available than applicants, they will typically advise use the date for filing. Otherwise, use the final action date. Now, my viewers, distinguished viewers, my advice is that you always have to check the USCIS website on a monthly basis to see the latest news and trend, to see if they are allowing submissions based on, is it the date for filing for that particular month or not? Because if your priority date, is current, under the final action date chart, typically, you are eligible to both prepare and submit your application to adjust your status immediately. But we will look at that of October 2024, if it's allowed to use the date for filing or not. So stay until the end, and you would see, again, not what ProfDan says. I'm only here to amplify what USCIS says and explain deeper to you. And of course, subscribe. All right, so let's quickly talk about those who are abroad. Those who are abroad cannot adjust status in the US because they are not in the US. Their processing for the next stage will pass through consular processing, which will pass through perhaps the embassy nearest to your location or where you reside. Now, again, for these people abroad, petitioners abroad, let me explain the date for filing and the final action date. So again, check your notice of action. If your priority date is earlier than the dates for filing chart, you can start preparing your documents. However, you will not receive a notification from the National Visa Center, NVC, to submit them yet. This is by default what typically happens, and that's what I'm explaining to you. So for those who are abroad, USCIS, after approval, we transfer your case to NVC. Then NVC will be the one to determine the nearest embassy or consular processing, how it will take place to communicate further with you. So that's what happens. So now, NVC also uses the date for filing charts to tell applicants when they can begin gathering their required documents, but this does not mean your visa is available yet. Meanwhile, the final action date, you will receive an official notification from NVC to submit your documents, again, if and only if your priority date is current based on the final action date chart. And don't forget, the final action date is when your visa is actually available, and that is when NVC will process your case. That is typically it, how the date for filing and final action date works for petitioners with approved cases with priority dates, whether they reside in the US or they are abroad. That is the typical norm. However, this big news that we've been waiting for, let's take a look at it and have a better understanding. And that's why I said you have to always check the latest news from the official source. Now, read through and follow with me what we have on the screen to explain two things again to you, this issue of final action date and date of filing. And I also want you to take notes why you have to take note of what each month's announcement is. This screenshot is directly from the USCIS website. which is what I will always use as the basis of my explanation to you, all my distinguished viewers. Take a pause and glance through what you have on the screen, this chart, glance through it, and after that, I will give my own analysis and thoughts to it. All right, now that you've taken a look at it, again, take your time to look at it, and let's dive deep into that. Now, you see the place I've already highlighted. Now, for employment-based preference filings, which is what I'm dealing with here, if you are filing your adjustment of status in the US under any employment-based category, EB1 to EB5, it says, this highlight says, you must use the final action date chart from the Department of State Visa Bulletin for September 2024. That is quite easy. That further stress two things that I have said. Every month's case is different. So you have to be on the lookout for what each month's visa bulletin that is released is saying. We are still in September 2024 as of the time of releasing this video. And for that visa bulletin, it says you should use the final action date. It didn't say use the date for filing. So what that means, again, for September, what that means is that your priority date must be earlier than the date listed under your employment category on the final action date chart in order to submit your adjustment of status application. That is what this means. However, the good news, the benefits of looking at the latest information from USCIS. Let's see. Here we have the notes for next month adjustment of status filing charts. That next month is talking about the October one. Again, for the employment-based preference filing, it says, starting in October 2024, you must use, it's not you may, you must use the dates for filing charts to submit your adjustment of status, which is really, really a good news. So that is it. That is the answer you're looking for. Am I going to use the final action date, which is March 2023, or am I going to use the date for filing, which is now August 2023? That is the answer to it from USCIS. So overall, what you should take note of, and again, what this always means all the time is that USCIS typically requires applicants to rely on the final action date chart. However, occasionally, as it's permitted, they allow you to use the date for filing charts, which is the one we have for October 2024. And what this means is that it gives some applicant the ability to submit their paperwork sooner, even though that their final action date has not been reached. So again, look at your priority dates. You can submit your paperwork. Some of you, when you want to adjust your status, for those of you in the US, you apply for other things like employment authorization card. So if you feel that you need it, you need to work legally speaking in the US, you can apply for your employment authorization card, EAD. Some of you want to travel. You've been waiting all this while. You can't leave the US. If you leave, is at you're coming back, maybe at risk and the likes. Now you can file for travel parole. All of these benefits comes with preparing your application. But even after doing all that, and you submit that with your Form I-485, which is the adjustment of status form, You can do all that. You can get all this benefit. However, you will still not be able to get your green card yet, not until the final action date comes, not until your priority date comes before the final action date. So overall, it's important to keep track of these, all of these dates to use to file your application. It's really, really important. And basically, that's it. And for those of you who are now happy and excited to move to this next stage, take note, even for adjustment of status, which is from I-485, you can still get RFE. People still get RFE. To avoid that, I'm going to drop in the description section from I-485, the overall description of how you adjust your status and how to fill the form and all the things you need to prepare. All of these things is available for free on adjustment of status playlist on ProfDan Tutorials. That's a different playlist. I think we have about 4 videos or episode on that particular playlist. Why not watch that so you have idea of what to expect or to avoid common pitfalls or errors. In those videos, I've also explained how you do your medicals. It's all about wisdom. It's all about proactiveness. Some people wait for 3-4 months to get their medicals done, while some people can do their medicals within 1 week. Again, it's all about information. So watch those videos and help yourself out. These are free educational resources that others are charging fees for. So when you get them for free, all you need to do is to calm down, sit down, eat your popcorn, take your juice or drink, and watch the video. Pause when you should pause to have understanding of it. And of course, reach out if anything is still confusing. We are all learning. It's all a learning phase for us also. I wish you all the best. Congratulations to everyone. I hope this video has made you understand the clear-cut difference between date for filing and final action date. Meanwhile, take notes, even for certain months when USCIS didn't say anything about you using date for filing, which typically means you should use the final action date. There are some folks who have gone ahead to use that date for filing, and some of them, their cases continue, successfully. So I'm just saying that for in case in another month it's moves back to final action date, in case. So I wishing you all the very best and congratulations. Get your green card, become permanent resident, and start moving your way to becoming a US citizen. I wish you all the very best. So important key takeaway is always check the USCIS website and get the latest information. For those of you also abroad, let me tell you, for October, based on the October 2024 visa bulletin that is released, what that also means that applicants from abroad can also expect the NVC, National Visa Center, to notify them of their priority if and only if your priority date is earlier than the date for filing. August 1st, 2023. If you have your priority date earlier than that date, then you can begin assembling and submitting, make effort to submit the required documents, even though again and again, the actual visa might not be available until the final action date becomes current. So basically that is it, and I wish you all the very best. And again, email info@stdanielsglobal.com if we can be of help to you, review your petition. We have a robust team. Check our website, check all our resources and sources what we offer. And again, it's all about bringing smile to everyone's face and having the pathway to achieving your American dream. Wishing you all the best. Please don't forget to like ProfDan Tutorials video, share with your loved ones. I'm begging you, share with your loved ones. Let them benefit from these rich resources. and free resources, and make comments. Of course, subscribe. Let's grow together. As I make efforts to do all this, support the channel as well. Again, I wish you all the best, and take care. Bye bye, and see you in another video. Bye bye.